Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar is appearing to be cracking under the growing pressure of a massive scandal that has absolutely rocked the Minneapolis Somali community that put her in power. Now, over the weekend when I was in Vegas, I told you about how over 70 people have now been arrested in what prosecutors are calling the largest pandemic fraud case in U.S. history. We're talking about $250 million that was supposed to feed hungry children during COVID, instead lining the pockets of fraudsters. The scheme was run through an organization called Feeding Our Future, and at the center of it was a Minneapolis restaurant named Safari that's being accused of acting as a front for this massive money laundering operation. Safari restaurant claimed to be serving 5,000 meals a day, 7 days a week to underprivileged children, when in reality, apparently they were spending just about $2,000 on actual food. Altogether, over $250 million was stolen from federal child nutrition programs. But it gets worse. We're now learning from federal counterterrorism sources that at least part of those stolen Minnesota welfare funds have been flowing directly to an organization known as Al-Shabaab. That's an Al-Qaeda-linked terror group in Somalia. So this is all part of remittance payments that were made by this alleged fraud ring back to Somalia. So Somalia's economy relies very heavily on remittances, much of it coming from the United States, but so do terrorist organizations like Al-Shabaab. They basically scrape off a percentage of the remittances coming into territories that they control for themselves. And so federal investigators and counterterrorist experts have confirmed Minnesota taxpayer dollars funneled through community remittance networks have indeed ended up enriching groups like Al-Shabaab, this Al-Qaeda spinoff, via the money they forcibly take from all the financial activity in their territories. One commentator put it this way, it's rather stark: the single largest funder of Al-Shabaab in the world is the Minnesota taxpayer. Just days ago, a fellow by the name of Usman Kamara became the 77th defendant charged in this Feeding Our Future scheme. He owned a small grocery store in Minneapolis, and he claimed to serve 1,000 meals to children daily, 7 days a week. But in reality, just like Safari Restaurant, he had actually served very few, if any. He ended up buying himself a building. He wired over $100,000 overseas. He paid $87,000 in kickbacks. And here's the kicker: Kamara had already been kicked out of the SNAP program back in 2015 for suspected fraud. This is a guy who got kicked out of SNAP years ago for suspected fraud, and yet Minnesota officials still approved him for this child nutrition program and sent him hundreds of thousands of dollars. Where is the real fraud here?